course, the big story tonight is the Broncos situation. It is not a matter of if now, but when the club parts ways with coach Anthony Seibold. And there is a reported seven-figure sum on the table for him to move on. Let's get all the latest with Nine Brisbane reporter tonight, Ben Dobbin, who joins us from Brisbane. Dobbo, what do we need to know on this situation?
Yeah, g'day James, g'day guys. Obviously this is an evolving situation in Brisbane. Yesterday, News Corp pulled the button on Anthony Seibold's career, offering him a severance package of $1 million. Now, they haven't sacked him, and he still can continue on at Red Hill, remembering he still has 3 years to go on a 5-year contract, which is fully guaranteed. The figure that's still remaining is $2.6 million, so we're a long way from home, $1 million being offered, 2.6 guaranteed. My understanding at the moment is they're in negotiations. They're trying to get that figure up. It should sit somewhere between 1.4 and 1.6 by the time it is finished, and Anthony Seibold will eventually walk away. This is not as much about him being a coach, but more about a welfare issue from the Broncos' perspective. They want to part ways. They want to do the right thing. Clearly, it hasn't worked, and now Brisbane need to move on and find their next coach and start planning to 2021.
Thank you, Dobbo. Ben Dobbin there in Brisbane with all the latest on the Broncos situation. It's a remarkable set of circumstances, this, Gus. How does this play out behind the scenes?
Well, I said a couple of weeks ago on this show, to watch this space because there was something brewing there. And I think from Anthony Seibold's perspective, he needed to take ownership of this well. I know that the Brisbane Broncos are saying this is a welfare issue, and I don't know why or where that supposed offer has come from in the last 48 hours. But I've always said from Anthony Seibold's perspective, he had to consider his position, consider not only his own personal welfare, but the welfare of his family, because we know the issues that have been dealing with there as well. And it's just the wrong time and the wrong place at the moment. I think he'll coach again. There's never a full stop on your career. There's always an opportunity to come back in some way, shape or form. But right at the moment, this isn't good for him, it's not good for his family, and it's not good for the Broncos. So the monetary value, the difference between $1 million and $1.4 million or whatever it's going to be, by the time you take tax out, it's not worth really worrying over. He needs to move on. The club needs to move on. It's not working, and they've got to go to
Gus,
different.
Does he need to take whatever they offer him, or should he go in and fight a little bit more if he wants to get a job in the future? If he's seen to dig his heels in and say, no, I want $1.82 million, does that affect him in the future if he ever wants to get involved in coaching again?
No, my mail is that they're still waiting a response from the management. So it's the management that are dealing with it. I would say that Anthony Seibold's a long way away from this. I'd say leave it to his manager to negotiate that, knowing full well whatever it is, and he's not going to argue any further with it. I think Anthony himself needs to take ownership of this as well.
Gus, does someone need to be held accountable? Because that club went through hell and back to try and move on Wayne Bennett, a club legend. They ripped the club apart virtually to get Anthony Seibold there. We're here now 18 months later and they're going to pay him out 1 point whatever it is to leave the club. The people who made that decision, do they need to be held accountable? Does something have to give at the Broncos?
As I've said all along, Michael, when this little bit here is resolved, they need to go back and look at why they got into this position and how they got into this position. I've always said it's not always the head coach's problem. There are underlying issues within the club that need to be looked at. And they need to go back and see not only why this has happened, but how they can avoid it ever happening again. I'm not sure that Anthony Seibold is the sole reason why the Broncos are performing the way they are, but all the way from recruitment, retention, development of players, through to the assistant coaching, the structure of their club, the mentality and culture of their club, all these things need to be looked at and how they got themselves in this position, because this is not good enough for the #1 club in our code to be performing like this and to have gone from sort of the penthouse to the basement in a very, very short space of time.
It was only like 5 or 6 years ago. I remember you were at Panthers and you said they were the benchmark club. You went up there, you looked at the way things were.
Well, it was a bit longer than that ago, but I was actually invited in by Paul White, and Anthony Griffin was the coach there at the time, and we looked at that and I said, well, that's the model for us. That's the model for what Panthers needs to be. It was the #1 club in the league at the time. It was in a different stratosphere to what Panthers was at the time, financially, commercially, business-wise, development-wise and everything it is. So a lot of what we did was modelled on what they showed us up there. And it was very impressive, but it's all fallen apart for them. And that's what they need to go back and do it, because the system was good. They had everything in place. What's taken them away from that, I don't know. And why it's ended up like this, I don't know. But from the whole salary cap management, recruitment and retention, the way they're developing their players, the competitions they're developing them in, and they might be minor matters, and the whole overall coaching structure, it's got to be reviewed. You've got to look at it and say, how did we get to this? And then how can we avoid it going forward?
Michael, while all this is happening behind closed doors between Anthony Seibold and the club at the moment, Kevin Walters coming out today and saying he'd, in some way, shape or form, love to be help out the club. Is he the favourite for the job?
Yeah, I think so. It's a two-horse race, really. It's Paul Green or it's Kevy Walters. And obviously, if it is Kevy Walters, that could have immediate effects on Origin, because if Kevy Walters walked into the Brisbane job, you want him there day one in pre-season. So he may not be able to coach Queensland at the end of the year. But I think the old boys are backing Kevy Walters, and I think if he wants the job, it'll just be between him and Paul Green. The other one, I don't know if it's a dark horse, can Cam Smith captain coach? Is that dead? Captain coaching in the modern era?
That might be the most ridiculous thing.
I said the same to him before. He goes,
Gal could have done it.
I said the one thing I'll say no to Cameron Smith is captain coaching. He can do anything else, but he couldn't captain coach. No.
Now, does Kevy, obviously Peter Gentle's there at the moment, does Kevy come in, would you imagine he'd want his own coaching structure to set up, or would he be able to lob in and just take what's there?
Well, Anthony Seibold came in and brought what he wanted into the club as well, and that didn't work out. So I think they're going to make some big decisions, the Broncos, over the off-season before
You've just given Kevy the job. What about Paul Green? What's he do?
Well, and as we know, speaking of Paul Green, he's very...
straight in the Queensland job, I reckon. I reckon it's going to be a little coaching merry-go-round there.
You reckon?
Whoever gets the Broncos job...
Well, we asked Paul Green here, not where you want to coach, where do you want to live? He said, I'm going to live in Brisbane.
Yeah, well, there you go.
He's got his eyes on this job.
He can coach the Queensland side from Brisbane.
Who should the coach be of the Broncos, Gus?
I think they've got to get the best available. It's the big club, you get the best available, the most experienced. So rookies haven't worked for them. It just hasn't worked for them.
Do you consider Kevy a rookie as an NRL coach?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're hinting Craig Bellamy, they have to go after him again?
100%.
Yeah.
Well, you start there and you work your way back, is what I would say.
Package deal, Cameron Smith.
Cameron and Craig.
Craig Bellamy.
Oh, yes.
I like where your head's at.
Exclusive.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they expand into Brisbane, that's who they'll be looking at. You know, if there's going to be another franchise in Brisbane, the first bloke they'll talk to is Craig Bellamy. And why wouldn't you?
Better get him first.
Start at the top. Well, if you're going to be the number one club, you start at the top. Simple as that.
And they paid him huge dollars, Melbourne, to keep him away from Brisbane, well, only 18 months ago, 24 months ago. So, look, I don't know if Craig Bellamy will walk out on the Melbourne Storm, but, hey, you never know.
Just going back to Kevy, has he made a decision on if he goes to the Broncos, he wants to keep going with Queensland? He's got the backing.
I don't think you're allowed to at these days.
Well, I think it'll be Queensland's decision if they want him to, but I think the conflict there will be this pre-season. Like, Brisbane can't afford for Kevy to have his eyes on Origin and not starting until December. If you're going to, rip the club apart and start again, he needs to be there day one doing so. So I don't know. Perhaps Queensland may have to throw Cameron Smith the coaching role. I don't know. I'm going to push him.
The Australian coach is working for the Gold Coast Titans. I mean, I thought all that went out the window.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Wow.
And Origin's now at the end of the year. It's not right now, so they don't have to worry about it.